North Lights Book Club, the only book club exclusively for artists, is proud to present this special edition of Peggy Harris's Paintable Kingdom. North Light Book Club brings you the newest and best step-by-step art instruction books at special discounts. Watch for Peggy Harris's new book, Painting Baby Animals, coming out in the summer of 1996. North Light Book Club members will be able to get Peggy's new book at their members' discount. And now, here's Peggy Harris.
Hi, welcome to this special edition videotape of Painting Baby Animals from Northlight Books. I'm Peggy Harris, and I am thrilled that you're here with me to share my method, and we're going to show you on this tape some of the secrets of the background. We usually don't show it too often on television, so this is your chance. We're working on flat, unstretched canvas. That's the way I like to work. I stretch them later. I have masking tape on it, and I've just left a window, whatever size I want. I use a good grade of portrait canvas, but for those of you who are just starting out, why don't you buy one of these canvas pads? Real canvas, but it's in a pad. Might be a little cheaper, a little more convenient for you, so you can try that too. Here's the big deal. It's this stuff called gel, and we take about a ½ inch, ¼ inch of it, and we S-shape it, anything we can do to get it up here. Just put it all over your canvas and rub it in fairly well. This is nothing more than solidified linseed oil. It won't hurt you, so just feel free to rub around on your canvas. Next, I take a cotton ball, and I dip it in my turpentine, and I squeeze it out, and I leave quite a bit of turp in it. It can be odorless, thin, or turp. It all works. And I spread my gel around, and I make sure it's just nice and wet and glossy. Now, don't leave your easel at this point because we've got to work fast. That's what makes it really, really work. Take a nice soft paper towel, the biggest, softest one you can find. Dip quite a bit of it in your turpentine so it's nice and moist, and this is your paintbrush. And with your gray or whatever color you're working in, usually a neutral color, you put a whole lot of this up here and you spread it around till it looks pretty much like it's not too soupy, but it's still very, very movable, like this. I'm showing you the halo first, and I kind of rub and get this. Yeah, now it's starting to tack up. The turp is evaporating and it's just about where we want it. The next thing I do is I take a dry paper towel, clean, and I start to rub it. And look here, it will streak at first. Don't worry about this. Streaks are fine, and you go one direction, another direction. The diagonals seem to work real well for me in really getting it smooth. As soon as it's looking pretty smooth, like so, you want to take not your one with the gel in it, not that cotton ball, but a very clean cotton ball, and you're going to dip it in your turp, and you're going to squeeze it out, and we're going to come down, we're going to wipe off all this gel. You've got to get this gel off. It'll yellow in about 6 months if it's left up in here. And you come down to about a ¼ inch of whatever size circle or shape you have made. And then with the clean side of the paper towel, you rub off the top, and you come down to almost within that area, and then you start a sunburst pattern, zigzag, 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 zigzag. We're going to go like this on this. Very, very soft. Notice the position of the paper towel, a lot of it out here. This is our pad. This is what's doing it for us. My thumb is back here where the line is, see? And I hold it flat along there. Here's the back side. See, it's already picking up. Here's the front side. And I go along like that, and then you can go like this to gently blend it even more with a little more pressure toward the outside. Then you can switch it over to its clean side and bring it in for a final. You can play with this endlessly. You can make shapes, you can do all kinds of things. For those of you who are just starting, I usually work my bottom just like this, but for those of you who are just starting, I recommend that you turn it upside down. For some reason, it's easier for all of you to come up to the top. Let's see if I can get this right back up where it was so you can have a real good view of it. For some of you, it's just easier to work upside down. This motion's easier than doing this. So we're going to, once again, now here I'm showing you where if you have more shape than you want, you can come on down. That's okay. You can keep making this any size you want. Really, what you have to do is learn the slip and slide of this. It's not going to behave the first time you do it, believe me. Okay, I've left a ¼ inch of the turpentine coming around here. I'm going to come in sunburst, back and forth, clean side, sunburst again. Then I can do it in these areas, or if you have an area over here that you want to really clean up, you can take a cotton swab, look there, with just a little bit of turpentine on it, a clean, dry cotton ball, and you can mush, 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 and you can get whatever you need over there. Now, you practice on this and you can get it really, well, you can get really fast. You can do a background in about 2 minutes. I haven't quite perfected this one because I'm going to show you some other things you can do. Say that you started out with just funny shapes on this. Let's see here, over here, like so, like so, like so, and then you do the same thing. You rub it down, something like this, getting it nice and smooth. And then you can take a turped cotton ball and you can make a shape in it. And you can take a dry paper towel. So much fun. It slips and slides. Don't worry about it. Just kind of let it go with the flow here. And look here. I can make clouds. I can take a dry cotton ball and I can make more clouds in it. This is so soft and so pretty. Sometimes you're going to want clouds with a little blue in it. And you can pat around in it till it's nice and smooth and there are no streaks. You can go back in if you've messed up. It is really no fail. Once you get used to it, just kind of going back and forth on you. And you can do really odd things, like you can make, well, let's see, sun rays. Let's try some sun rays coming down through. All these different kinds of things. You can just vary it. The main thing is, though, is the part that's going to be under your animal should be wet enough that you can make a fingerprint like that. That's a good little test. So if you can fingerprint it, there's enough gel and there's enough paint in it for you to do your animal. Now I want you to see a supply list, because we never show this on the television either, and these are the exact things that I use. If you're going to substitute, that's just fine, but I thought you'd like to see what I use. And then here are 4 of my favorite programs. Take what you want out of my technique, make it your own, throw the rest away, have fun with it, experiment. That's what it's all about on the Paintable Kingdom. See ya. I recommend the following materials for the very best results. Canvas, buy the very smoothest you can possibly find. You know, we want every little hair to show up on our animals, and the real smooth surface really, really helps. Masking tape, well, just buy the cheapest you can. You know, all it's really doing is shielding the outside of around the rim of the piece of canvas, so don't worry about that. And transfer materials, to my way of thinking, however you can get it over there, that's what'll work for you. Do it that way. Even wax paper works almost as well as tracing paper. For a palette, I cut down my old Q-tip boxes. It really works well, but be careful. Not all plastics work well with thinners and things. Sometimes it'll eat through. Gel. Now, there's only one that works in our method as far as I know, and that's Grumbacher gel. There are lots of really nice gel products, but they dry up. They're a resin gel, things like that. So only Grumbacher gel is going to work for you. Oil paint, just keep in mind that every manufacturer has a different staining power in their paint, so if you're substituting here, make sure that your colors match. And in that case, your formula for what I call fawn, which is kind of an approximate formula anyway, may or may not be in this proportion. So we always have to look at what we're getting, not what the formula says is supposed to be doing. Anyway, mediums, I prefer Grumbacher odorless thinner. I like all their products. I think they're reasonably priced for the quality of the product. You may want to substitute something else, but please, please don't use hardware store thinners. They don't work and they're smelly. Okay, gang, brushes. Please, please, please buy the very, very best brush you can. For a bristle brush, I prefer the Hyplar Supreme from Grumbacher. It's a little tidier brush. It gives me the exact type of hair I want. And for my hair brushes, my rounds and my brights are lift-out brushes. I use 100% red sable. I have never found another brush that works quite as well. You may, but I haven't in 20-some years, so whatever. For a fan brush, any little old junky fan brush is going to work. In this method, it really doesn't matter a whole lot. Fluff stuff. I prefer, above and beyond all others, Cheeseboro Pond's Q-tip cotton swabs. They really do the job for me. For paper towels, I like Job Squad where it's available. And as far as your cosmetic puffs go, just go to the drugstore or the grocery store and get those. X-Acto knife, well, a push pin will work, but we all have an X-Acto knife anyway. And as a finishing touch, you may want to varnish your picture in a few months when it's really dry. It'll make it look a lot prettier. Let's paint a cute little puppy taking his very first bath. I call this one Rub-a-Dub Pup. Hi! Today, we're doing a mutt puppy. I love to do mutt puppies. I always think about all those adorable puppies at the pound that are just so sweet you want to take every one of them home. I don't dare go. I don't know about you. I've already got my background on, and we've done the halo with our gel, smear the turpentine on, put your gray paint on, and then where you would probably have traced a line drawing, I've made this a little bolder so we can really see what we're doing today. Anyway, I've already got him on. He's having a bath. And we're ready to paint. And we're going to do our sloppy, sloppy paint. Remember, you can't miss with this paint. So, let's start. Our darkest, darkest shadows first. It's so easy when you do your pattern. Under these ears, we want some dark. And around his eyes. Look here. There. I use a bright brush, one of these little square brushes, because I find it lets me manipulate the paint, lets it flow off a little easier than a round. Gives me a lot of variation. I like that. Okay, and around his nose, because he's going to have shadow in there, he's going to be dark, and along here, and then his top of his ears are very, very dark, so we just go on and smear a lot of it in. You don't really want to go outside your original lines, but you don't have to be too particular. And here, now in this one, you want to leave a lot of background paint under because our gel and our gray paint that's in there is really going to help us make the long fur. There he goes. And maybe some paws, and let's come in up under here. That's going to be real shadowy back in there. Then we can put something in there in a minute. Okay. Underneath the paws, see? Every place he's going to be dark, or you want the color for the fur. Okay, and then I can add, I have my pad under my turpentine, so I can just wipe out on it, because today we're going to be talking about working clean. I think it's kind of important. There, just a little more of the lighter gray. This is all going to mix in. You're just going to be amazed how it just comes together for you. It's one of the most fun ways to do animals and to do fur. We're ready to do our first brush. We take our stiff acrylic brush and put it in the gel. And when you're doing a long-haired animal, you need quite a bit of gel, kind of a terpy gel. And we're going to start our brush. And remember, we don't have to be too particular yet, because we can fix it, we can do anything we want, okay? All right. Now, you can't see it on your television quite as well as you can when you do this in person. You'll just be amazed. From my view right here, every little piece of fur and hair is standing up. And we're just going to go around just like we were growing it for the first time. And I've got a little too much dark here. I'm just going to take my finger and blot it off. That's why I always wear a painting shirt or smock or an apron, because I really get into it. You notice I even put my hand in the background. We can fix that later. Makes it real simple. Now up in your real dark shadows, you don't want to brush too heavily because you want it to stay dark, and you're not going to see every piece of fur that's up in the darkness. Okay, and let's very quickly take this on out. It's not going to matter much. Always think about the way it grows. Think about it. Go get your dog and look at him. Get your cat. Now this really is a Lhasa Apso puppy. I had a friend that bred Lhasa Apsos, and I think they're really kind of the epitome of what looks like a mutt dog. I do them a lot. I've got them all over the room here. I really like them. Okay, we're not going to brush too much in here. It's dark. And here, we're going to blend. We go from our light to our dark, and it makes our lighter gray. And this one, yeah, looks pretty messy, right? Don't worry about it. Let you get a little head start practicing what you want to see in a few minutes. You can kind of look at him now and you can see whether or not you think he's in general about the color you want. And that's going to depend how much later on you want to take out then. If he's too dark, you're going to take out a lot. If he's lighter. And let's make him a little longer furred. Now notice when I make longer fur, I don't start way in here for the long fur because it's a little bit thin when it gets out there. What you want to do is just take off the very edge, pick up some. Otherwise you're going to have a whole bunch of paint that just acted like a snowplow and all the paint's going to be out there. So what you want to do is just tip off way out here. There we go. And we need to blend here a little bit more. And a little more gel. And now he's a mess and ready to make him start looking like something. Outside, we're just going to do this just a little bit. Notice I've very boldly marked this so you can see where his little sunshine, sunburst muzzle is. They have the cutest little muzzles, and it shows off their nose. I really like that part. Okay, grab your whole stack of Q-tips. Remember, we do them all at once. Put them all in. Blot them out. You don't want too much in there. Now you've got a whole bunch of them ready to go, and it's going to make it real easy. First of all, let's lighten up his ears. He's got white tips. You know, I originally did this puppy, and it was kind of a made-up, generic little pup. And I met a woman who bought one of these paintings, and the one she had, she said, "You painted my puppy." And I said, "Well, I just made it up." And she said, "No, and here's the photograph." And I wish I had that photograph today because the one that I had done looked exactly like her pup. It's kind of one of the fun things of getting to meet the people that buy your paintings. Okay, we've highlighted his muzzle because he's going to be pretty white there, and we're going to take our stiff acrylic brush and we're going to work with it just a little bit, softening. I got into the eye a little bit, but that won't matter. We'll take it out in a minute. There we go. And once again, just work on the very edge where you want your grays to be. You can always bring more dark in. Don't worry about it. You can play with it. There. Now we can start to see how he's going to look. And we're going to do the highlight on the forehead. We're going to bulge him a little bit here, so we round it out. And he's getting wilder and wilder. Now, don't be afraid of your turpentine. You can always put something back in if you want to, so don't worry about it. And over his eyebrows, all his little sunburst. There he goes. And blend. However we want, we can make streaks. See, we can do that. We can fan him out here. However you want him to look. My puppies are usually about age 2 in human terms. I like in baby animals, I like that 2-year-old stage. If they were a human, they're not quite aware of the world yet. They're just beginning to discover. They kind of just seem kind of in wonder all the time and a little bit lost in time. And they don't have very much little neck, just like human babies, and very little chin, and great big eyes. I tell you what, some of the neighbor puppies were over here the other day, and I'd really like for you to see these darling 3 little puppies, all from the same litter. And I'll go on and glow this a little bit for a while, okay? See you in a minute. one kept falling asleep on my lap. Just wherever you put him, he just flopped, just at that beautiful, cute age. Still hard to believe they're all brothers and sisters, though, isn't it? Well, back to our little 2-year-old mess here. As you can see, I've been working on him, and all the techniques I was already showing you, I've kind of gotten with my Q-tip. I've been glowing and shading and playing, and you can do this forever, particularly when you're working in the grays, because they don't dry very fast. And so you have plenty of time. What we want to do now is use our real large, bright square brush, what I call a takeout brush, and we're going to define some of these furs. Look at this. You can have more fun doing this. Now, you don't want to do it all. You can really get carried away with your turf brush. But I just rub it off my fingers or on the pad under my turf jar. There, look there. Now, after you do a little bit of this, look, we'll bring one real fine. Look, fun stuff. You want to blend it also, just like if you were using your Q-tip, to make it soft. The whole object of this stays soft and looking realistic. And even though I do these cute little animals, the same technique can be used for mighty grizzly bears or anything else, because fur is fur. I kind of like the sweeter side of nature. It kind of balances the harsh side to me. It's all there. Look at this little thing. You don't know what to think. Here we go. Again, and we can play with that more later. So kind of get the whole little pup or animal coming up at once, and you can kind of in general see where you're going to need things so you don't overwork. This is what this is all about, is how to do it easily. And I think we're ready to do our eyes. Okay, do eyes. We want to start out, the black in itself for this large an eye would be too harsh. So we're going to put a little raw umber underneath it. And in our technique, we're not going to worry about making it perfectly round. We're just going to kind of mess in there. And the same thing is going to go for his nose, because when we glow up, we want that nice soft shade of brown rather than just a harsh old gray. And now we're going to take our black and our whipped cream paint, and we're going to lay in the real shape of the eye. Lots of whipped cream. And we won't start exactly in the middle, because we want that to stay rather brown. But notice how I fill in and then stretch. You don't have to draw it perfectly. You can just keep stretching it to however big you want it. There it goes. Yeah. And it helps underneath these eyes that are this large to have it already whited out with a Q-tip down to the bare canvas. That way it'll glow up prettier. And little nose. I always think of these little dog noses as a hamburger. I don't know why, where the top bun is a little bigger when I draw it. There's a little bun. Here's the bottom bun. There we go. And we'll delineate going down into our mouth right now. And look, he's starting to look at us. There he goes. And then we're going to put in the dark above here. And kind of just sketchy that, because we're going to use it. Come a little closer. Okay. Now, we get our Q-tip, and I usually use it on the side, but in this event, we're going to get right up on it so we have a lot of control, and we're going to glow the eye with a dry Q-tip. If you want it out real white, you use turp. If you just want it to be very, very soft, you use it dry, just like this. And same thing on our nose, and that gives us our base. There we go. And now we can set our pupils. Pretty soon he's going to look at us, and that's always the fun part, making him come alive. And remember, just stir your puddle, and you'll have circles. Just stir, stir, stir. Okay, there. And our nose, we'll put in the nostrils. There. And I think I want him a little darker up in here. Now here's where you start to play with your expression, however you want it to look. There. Now take a turp brush, a small one, because this is going to be tiny, and we glow. And here comes the highlight. Look here. This poor little thing can't imagine what's happening to him. It's his first bath, you know. Okay, and as bright as you want, and just shape and scrumble and blend and just play. And it gives you all the shading without having to paint each individual patch. That's what's really so much fun about this. And see how our brown softened everything out? And here I made a little glitch. So I'll just take it out. There. Okay. Now, let's go on and do the fun part. Let's put the pupil, the highlight in the pupil, so he really is looking at us. And then we can fiddle with his eyebrows and everything else. I'm going to have him looking up today. He's looking up. I think we're standing right up over his head here. We put him in this bucket. And remember, with your white paint, just let it fall off the end. You don't really want to stir around in that black because it's very wet. And you just make gray if you stir around. And then you can just keep pressing it and enlarging it. And there he is. And maybe, so he looks like he has a wet button nose, we put just a little bit of white on top. And since we've got his eyes, we might as well give him a tongue. Here he goes. Look at him come alive. And you just kind of put a little junky red in there, and then we're going to take it out with a turp brush. And just glow. There. Now we can see with our color already here that maybe we're going to want to be a little brighter around the mouth area, so our turp brush will help us do that. And we can put in some little fine things right in here, little hairs. And another trick we can use is we can take our X-Acto knife and make a few also. But we're not going to do that right yet. Okay, and the little dip in the tongue. And I've noticed that we haven't put on our paws yet, so while we've got him here, let's just, whoops, red on that. We don't want a red in the paw. Make him look like he got hurt. Okay, here. We're going to take and just kind of lightly scrumble in, because these aren't terribly realistic on this little guy. There, just the indication of his paws. And then our large turp brush, we're going to work around his eyes. And look here, we can put hairs that come down, and hair, we can take up some of the dark, we can do all of this. Maybe put a little draggy one over here. And clean this up. I want him real white on his muzzle, I've decided. There he goes. Now, and grab your X-Acto knife, and you can put hairs. Look, you can. These ones that are real fine, and maybe your brush isn't fine enough to get them. Look at this silly thing. And if his eyes start to close down, just take your dark and open them up a little bit more, so he looks like he's wondering. It's really fun to play with these expressions. And sometimes it's fun just to take out one even you like and change it just to see what he'd look like the other way. You can make him mad, happy, whatever you want. It's really a fun thing. We're about ready to do some bubbles. And Q-tips make wonderful, wonderful bubbles. Let's grab our whole batch again. Let's blot them out. And look here. Soap. We just go on the side. And first use your turped end, and then you use the dry end to slightly blend. And we can make bubble, bubble, bubbles. It's important when you're doing things like this to feel what it feels like. You know, all of our senses come into play in our art. The sense of smell, the sense of touch. It's not right here, but it shows if you were thinking about it or not. So I like to feel what a bubble bath felt like. Just think about it, and it helps you draw better bubbles. Now, if you want round ones, just kind of go round and round. Don't work at it too hard. Just kind of stir, and it'll make a round bubble. There. And while we're in all this soap, I think we might want to talk a little bit about working clean. I think you all have noticed that I use lots of paper towels. I always try and work in a room that's really well ventilated. Even if you can't smell odorless thinner, it's there. It's just like turpentine. And at home especially, this is important to have, you throw away your rags all the time. And learn a little, subscribe to the Art Hazards News, which is a national organization that helps artists know what's safe and what isn't. Wash your hands, and I have to remind myself all the time, keep my brushes out of my mouth. It's too convenient to hold them there. Pigment is pigment, even if it's in your pastels or your pencils. And it's really not good for us to eat it. So I try and throw everything away every day. Look at these bubbles. See what you can do? There we go. And I think before we go too much further on our bubbles, we better do our bucket because we want to hang down over it. Now, how I do a bucket is I just take a big old brush and I use a straight edge because I want to make it straight. Why should I have to really draw right there? And I put it up here and I go along it. And then I take a cotton ball. And because our background is wet, we can smudge it right in. Look there. Take it down, soften it out just a little bit. And if I came down too low, you know, it's no fail painting. There. I can take it up a little bit with my nice soft cotton ball. And I do the other side, making sure I have them even. There we go. Just a little bit. And another cotton ball. And I need some more. See, you can play with it however dark or however light you want it. There we go. Whoops, I'm going to lose my brush. I'm going to want that one. Excuse me. There you go. And then, to make the bucket shine, we use another cotton ball and just streak it. And it gives us enough of what I want for a background or a setting for this puppy. You could get real realistic if you wanted to. To me, the focus in this is the puppy. And then I want to show you another trick that's really fun. We're going to clean out our illusion of a handle here. Just a little bit. And I'm going to darken it around the edges. Here to give just give the idea that it's recessed a little bit here and to define it. Here we go. And then here's what's fun. When you want to do little tiny circles with a hole in the middle, take an eraser. This is just an eraser like on the end of your pencil, only mine's in a holder. But end of your pencil, and you can clip it down with a X-Acto knife and get it to a nice sharp point, and you take your eraser, pencil, whatever it is here, put it in your paint, and I'm going to make screws here. Okay, here we go. And it comes out round, and I don't have to sit there and draw them. Isn't that fun? You can use this for a lot of things. In fact, you can use it to take out eye highlights too. They're not quite as bright as your white paint, but it'll work. Now, more bubbles. We're going to come down over the bucket now that we've got it done. There, it's drippy, drippy, drippy. And maybe we've got a stray one flowing around down here. There. And maybe to make the composition move, like the bubbles are coming up and floating all around, we'll put some up in here. You can just put them any place you want. Don't over bubble. You can get so carried away with this because it's so fun to do that you just bubble, 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 bubble. There we go. And now it's time to look at him and say, are you just like we want you? Remember, we're in control, and he's our baby, and we have to take care of him and make sure he looks really, really pretty. And so we want to make sure that all these little lines are exactly as we want them. And I think that he's looking pretty good, except we want him to be a little longer furred. And it's easy at this point to actually look at him and see what more you might want to do. This is your fiddling time. There, he's really kind of a scroungy little thing. He's looking at us and saying, what am I doing in this? I can't believe he's in here. And then we're in these areas, if we want some bubbles, we have to work a little harder because we're not on our nice light gray paint. We're in the dark, the real dark black. And sometimes you can go around the edge with a dry Q-tip to soften that up if you want to. In fact, I might try a whole Q-tip here. Let's see. Yeah. He's just really going under in these. Look at this. There we go. Okay. And whoops, look what I did. Just take it off. And at this point, that you go over your background. Remember, we're wet, and just as the same way as you put it on, you can get your fingerprints out, do anything like that you want to do. Makes it so simple. You can soften, and you're ready to sign your painting. And I've talked about it before, but get that signature that you like, that you think is pretty. And in this case, I'm just going to use the gray. Look how little color worked to give the illusion of color. One little pink tongue did the whole thing on a black and white painting, basically. You don't have to have a lot of paint. Oil's expensive, but you can really make it go a long way if you play with your color. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye. These little baby wrens are really a fun project. They make me laugh. I call it grounded. I don't know about you all, but when I put out new paint, it was like when I was a little kid and you got a new box of crayons and they were all pointed and you tried to keep them all nice and pointed for a long time. That's how a fresh palette always feels to me. Of course, all of this is going to end up on me sooner or later. I can't seem to work in an apron. I miss the apron and get it on my clothes, so I wear these work shirts. You find something that you like that's really comfortable to work in, and I find it real helpful to work in the same place all the time. It's outside of when I'm outside sketching or doing something like that. If I come in here and I've got my painting shirt on and I'm at my place, at my window, it's like the brain says, okay, time to go to work, time to create, and it's real, real helpful. By the way, I want to show you a little tip. When you make your drawings, I draw on a vellum tracing paper. It really helps me when I'm getting ready to do a painting. I can shift, particularly when there are a lot of elements. I can draw them at various places, put them all together, shift them, whatever I want to do, and rearrange things without having to redraw every single part. And I think you'll really enjoy working like this. Also, it doesn't rough up when you erase. With a kneaded eraser and this nice slick paper, you can kind of keep changing. If you're like me, you don't do it right the first time. And the other thing it has is that when you go and you have your nice background like we use with our gel and our gray, and we've got it all like we want, you can put up your tracing, and then with a ballpoint pen or a stylus or something, it'll mark through. When you lift it off, it'll be drawn on there for you. Now, I've emphasized these a little bit so you can see them today. Guess what today is? Baby birds. I think that they are some of the cutest things in the spring to watch and be around. I have every year a mama wren that comes and builds her nest on top of the push broom in my garage, even in spite of the cat. And so I get a great opportunity to watch these little baby wrens. They're just little golf ball things, really, really cute. Let's get a whole handful of Q-tips, okay? And dip them in and blot them out on our blotter. And we're going to make fluffy, fluffy little breast fur for these little tiny babies. I'm going to start up here. This one doesn't take too much. These little guys are coming on their first flight out of the tree. Do that, and look here. Just like you're glowing on your dark fur, just the same technique on the side of our Q-tip. Kind of just scrumble around, and it's okay if it isn't white at first. Don't worry about it. You can make it white where you want it to be white. You want to leave enough gray spots so that you can have some depth in this, because white is not white without some dark against it. So make sure that you kind of leave some nice gray areas that you're going to be able to stretch and use. Let's get our stiff brush and dip it in our turpentine or your odorless thinner. Either one works equally well. And just work on the edges. Look at all this fluff we're going to make. Look there. Now you can either stretch out your gray, or you can use the acrylic brush to go on and stretch out the white part. Kind of learn to juggle it back and forth till it's just in the place that you want it to be. And it looks nice and soft. And if you get a ring out here along the edges, just pull it back in. Because sometimes your turp will go out there and kind of make a little shadow area, and you don't want that. It won't look as fluffy. Now, you can still play with this. Say, I think that I need something someplace else. I'm starting to talk to this little baby, saying, hey, you don't look quite right over here. There, add a little more, getting fluffy. There. Now notice I'm not using any dry Q-tip in this. It's all turp Q-tip. And I think he looks pretty fluffy, except just one place here I don't really like too much. Break it up. Leave enough spots, and then you can go back in and break through them till you've got just the downy, downy look you want. And I think he's going to be fine for just now. Up here, we still have a wing we haven't dealt with. Probably ought to get him a little white down under his wing. There we go. Now, once again, we're not using a real extensive palette. There really isn't any need. A few basic colors in your oil paints, because they're expensive, I know that. You can just mix your own, and I usually, my base color for so many things in my animals, in the birds, everything, is the raw umber. And I've said before, I don't care for the burnt umber as much in this technique, because when we do our takeout, it ends up pink, and you kind of a pinky stain. So usually we use the raw umber. Load your brush into your whipped cream. We always say that, but it really works for this. And let's do some tails. Whoops, look, red already spreading. Red and Prussian blue tend to just grow in this world. I don't know, I end up all over. Okay, with a nice load on your number 1 bright, a little bright, whatever's comfortable. I like the bright because I can get a lot. I'm going to just slide down, I'm going to press and slide down. Press and slide down. Whoops, I didn't like that so much. Okay, side tail, shorter. And over here, he needs this little tail. I find it's helpful to do all the tails at once, all the eyes. Keeps me thinking about what part is the thing I really want to concentrate on at the time. Okay. Look, just press and drag off. Press and off. You don't have to sketch, sketch, sketch. We're not doing pencil, you know. You know, while I'm talking about pencil, a brush is not a pencil. And it needs to be held fairly loosely so you can deal, it has some mobility and some life to it. If you're a pencil gripper, it's going to be real hard. So when you're dealing with your brush, kind of hold it loosely and let it do the work for you. That's what it's meant to do. Now we're going to do our messy part like it usually looks on our animals. We're just going to give ourselves some color around in here. I want him a little darker over there. I'll put in for the eyes. Come down. He's kind of going to be frowning. He doesn't know what in the world's happening to him. And here, and in, avoiding our beak. Okay, and I think that I'm going to save this little bird down here for a while, because see, my hand's getting in here. And you know, we can take it off with a paper towel where we get some fingerprints. You don't have to just really lean into it, but you can put your hand there and it's not going to hurt anything, and that's one of the other nice things about this process. Let's use some burnt sienna to give these guys a little bit of color. In real life, they really don't have it, but these birds have kind of evolved for me into generic little birds, just little mess golf ball birds. And maybe a little bit up in there, and we're ready for our stiff brush. Now remember, you have your acrylic brush, and you want to have some turpentine in it just to wet it down. You don't use it just straight. You wet it down and put it in your gel, because it's the gel that's going to make every little tiny line show up. And I know at home you can't see it quite as well as I can here, but when you try this, you're just going to be amazed. Every little line of feather and fur shows up. And in this case, these little babies are so young, they're real downy, and their feathers are just an awful lot like fur. So we're going to treat it just the same. And I'm going to go along his little backside right up here. And in this case, because I don't want him to stretch out, he's not real long in his fur, I put my brush down and drag in. And that gives me a nice, fine, little even edge here. So see, I'm dragging in. Okay. And then I'm going to go in my dark over here and just kind of put some marks in it. And then I'm going to wipe out, because over here, I want this to stay light. There. So that we're going to have some contrast where the head comes up against it here. And now I'm going to drag in again. If we want him to look wild, I'll show you in a minute, we can drag it back out. But for right now, and remember, you want it to all look like it's growing there on his little round body. So be sure that you make everything go the right direction, because all these little lines are showing up. There. be real careful when you're with the sienna, because believe me, it can kind of get away. And once it gets out in your background, or if your hand gets in it and gets it in your background, forget it. You know, it takes a long time to get it back to where it looks all neat and tidy. So be kind of careful when you're dealing with any of these red types of colors, siennas and vermilions and things like that. Okay, look at him. He's almost flying. Let's do this one. There. Now we don't want to overbrush. It takes just a few strokes in these little tiny wings and things like that. There we go. And into his sienna. And once again, I'm going to avoid his breast right here, because once it gets in this white area, it's really difficult. The sienna stains and makes it kind of pinkish yellow. So you're better off if you're kind of careful. We go real fast and sloppy sometimes, but get kind of careful when you approach that breast, okay? Now this one's kind of a wild hair. He really is. And I think I'm going to add a few more little head feathers to him here to make him look. I could draw a few, but I think I'm out, but I think I'm going to need just a little more. Yeah, look at this. There it goes. And then I'm going to soften that out because the wind has him. You know, it's really helpful to make up the story, whatever's happening. These little guys, is their first trip out. And they're not supposed to be out. Mother's gone. I had a baby bird at my house that kept going out of the nest, and the mama would come back and scold at something awful every time. There, okay. If you want to soften your tails, just drag once. Just a little bit of light, just 3 or 4 hairs on the back of your acrylic brush will do it. You don't, if you stir in here too much, it's all going to go away, it's all going to be one color. So go in gentle. You can always get rougher with it as you go along. Let's get our terp brush, because we're going to define our eyes and these scrunchy little mouths that birds have. Okay. Let's all clean, just turpentine in it or your odorless thinner. Let the chemical do the work. If you go too fast, the chemical isn't going to sit there long enough, and you want it really to be on there just a second, and then it just lifts right off. It's just like magic. Okay, there. And here's the top of this scrunchy little mouth, because he's gritting his teeth. This is Birdie's head teeth. He's thinking, oh boy, what have I gotten myself into? And let's clean his wings just a little bit, because up in these fine areas you can't always get it with your Q-tip. So we want to do there. Any cleanup you want. And if in these areas up in here you're too harsh, just lightly take your acrylic brush and go on and blend it into the rest of the head. Let's do this guy. Yeah. This one is not so afraid. You know, one reason I always enjoyed these little birds at my house was they just seem to have no sense of future, of past, of anything else. They just kind of exist, and they know no consequences, as this painting is really, I think that's why I did this. It kind of demonstrates they just have no idea what might happen next. They just kind of go for broke for the moment. Sometimes they end up just sitting on a windowsill for a while, just staring into space. Look here. This one's a little happier. We're going to make him happy. And we clean our wings. There we go. Okay, let's get some eyes and a beak on here. And let's see what a little real color does for this. Let's start with our ivory black and put in our eyes. And once again, make that puddle. It makes it so much easier. Get your puddly paint. And for the top birdie, his little eyes are going to be closed. So I'm going to get my puddly paint, but then I'm going to take out some of it. And I'm going to go with his eyelashes, look, and I'm going to turn them up. And if you think of your own eyes or little children's eyes, they turn up when they're squinching. So you want the, there, like he's got fat cheeks that get in the way. And then we'll put in his beak. And I do the center first so I can establish the distance between the eyes and make sure it's all going to be just like I want it to be. And then let's do a funny little squunch on him. There we go. I don't think squunch is a word. Kind of how he must feel squunched. Okay, and let's do, now we get our full load on our little bitty zero round brush, and we start with a little mess in the center. Doesn't matter if it's round at this point, just get a puddle of paint and then start to stir your puddle till it's just the size you want it, going round and round. Actually, the brush isn't touching clear out there on the edge. The paint is being shoved in front of it. This guy. Okay. Now, I think he needs a little bigger eye. That's the fun thing, you can play with this. If you want it bigger, it can be bigger. If you want it smaller, just get your turp brush and take it down. There, now he's got just a little more of the proportion I was looking for. Let's go to some cad yellow light, another one of our staple basic colors because it works with so many other things. I don't know what I'd do without cad yellow light. And get a nice quick creamy load of that, but we're not going to put it on real thick, and we're going to put in the entire beak in any shape we want. There you go. And once again, kind of do the middle and then just take it on out to the edges. And that'll be nice and bright. And then take some sienna, because we want to put his throat. You know, that's a charming thing about little birds. They're that bright orangish mouth where the mama's supposed to put some food. And boy, when they're little, you can see it. They stand there with it open all the time, squawking. And let's, there. And then wipe out your brush on your pad. There's no need to go to the turp. And with this dried up brush, kind of scrumble on just a few hairs, and that allows you to put in some really nice shading there that you can't get when it's wet. And to make the real depth in his mouth, let's add a little raw umber right down to the tonsils. Open him up. Okay. And then I'm going to use a turp brush and get my yellow just a little bit brighter around the edges. See, it's still yellow. Doesn't take it all the way out, but look at it come up in the color. There you go. And then what I do on these birds is I use a little bit of pink in the bill. I don't really know why. I've never seen pink on the bird's bill. It just seems to add a little nicer blend of color, sparks it. I add a little bit of this pink along here, just to kind of change up the color. And then, because when we took out our cad yellow light, it turned out just a light yellow. Today, I'm going to spark with just a little bit of white. I usually use a titanium white. And look what this will do. Just a touch. Just that minute touch makes it glisten. And while we're here, let's get our little bitty dot for our eye. And remember, don't press the brush in. Just set it down, and you'll probably get a perfect circle. Isn't that amazing? If you tried to draw it, you couldn't get it, but by just setting it down, you can do it. I think you all are going to really enjoy trying some of these things. And here, my canvas is holding its gray in the pits of the canvas. So I'm going to add a little bit of white on this mouth out here. And while I'm doing this mouth, I'm thinking maybe we ought to put some feet on these birds. You know, you always have to check, can they smell, can they see? Sometimes you can go and you just forget it. Then you look a week later and there it is. And for this, we're just going to take our black and we're going to press and down, there, back in, and over here. And I've marked right on my canvas with pencil markings here where I want these little tiny feet. You can draw with a pencil right through this gel and gray. It really gives you a lot of different ways you can approach putting your drawing on your canvas. And then, because his mouth still doesn't look like it really has room for a worm in there, whatever Mama's going to put in, I'm going to add just a little more dark. And he just looks kind of happy. He has no idea what's going to happen to him in just a few seconds, does he? While I'm doing this little mouth and I'm going to finish this little bird, I want you to take a look at some photographs of a little tiny baby robin that were done about 3 weeks ago. He was found out here, out of the nest, and you'll see these little squinchy mouths. See you in a minute, okay? Can you believe that? I really feel so privileged when I get to be that close to something that wild and to help it to live. He was really cute. You know, I want to talk to you a little bit about once you get really excited about an animal that you're doing, you can put it in a lot of positions and a lot of different scenes, like you're an animator. And these little birds are a good example for me. I have this one, which I've called One Ringy Dingy. Addled, once again, the same type of thing. This one was the safety net, little thing using a little bit of help on an old basketball goal. And the one we're doing today is grounded. And I think you can see why he's grounded. They're coming out of the nest, and this one's gone splat on the ground. And maybe they can't use the car anymore, I don't know, for leaving the nest. Let's start with a little red, and we're going to put a ladybug in here because I thought this one needed a little bit of color. And once again, we're going to use our puddle technique until it's just the size we want. So we're going to go round and round and round and round and round. I've got a little glitch of paint in there. Get it out. Okay. And go round and round and round till it's, and this makes the sharpest, cleanest edge, just what I've been telling you on the eyes, and maybe you can see it a little better here with the ladybug. And then we're going to glow her a little bit. We don't have to use another color of paint. Look here. So it makes her look round, all the highlight places. There. And then we're going to put on her antenna and her little shiny black head. Let's go here. And you want this paint fairly loose because you're going to have to ride it for her little black dots on top. Make her little head. There it is. And have her press and draw off. Press and draw off. Look how sharp that makes that. And then come down her back and get a little more. And although she probably in reality has more than 3 dots on her, sometimes for artistic purposes, we need to change things just a little bit, unless you're going for real realism. And in this case, I've added just 3 dots, because to put any more in there, it starts to get a little tangled. And maybe just 1 on the other side. There. And some little 6 feet. There we go. Ladybug looking at our bird. I want to show you a real quick and easy way to do a branch, because we want to give the idea that he fell out of the tree. And once again, I already have my pencil marks here. You could just freehand it in wherever you want it. I'm going to take a bit of gel and some raw umber and just press down, come over, go put another branch up here. And I'm going to follow through behind the animal. Sometimes it helps if you think of this as the whole thing underneath or behind an animal. So when I come in here, I just go along the animal and come down again where it would be logical. That saves you from having things where it starts and goes up here and comes out at the wrong place. Always think of it as where it would be behind there. Then you can't make a mistake. Really simple way of doing it. Okay. And then, if you want it to look a little more like wood, just take your high plar and gently, and you might not be able to see the little marks, But they're here, believe me, it looks like little bark marks. There, and softens it out. Now let's try some pine needles, and we're almost finished. Pine needles, once again, are whipped cream. I know you all are probably saying, whipped cream, whipped cream. I mean it. It's the way it really works on this nice wet background. If you try and get too sticky, you'll just get all stuck up in your gray paint and it won't do anything for you. First of all, let's indicate for a little action that things are happening, like stuff that came out of the tree. And notice I don't move my fingers as such, I move my hand. Really, remember, stiff arm helps that nice, clean, solid line that you want to work with. And then I go down, and you can sit there for a minute, you don't have to dash, just wait till you know where you're going. You know, it doesn't help you to see where you've been, you've got to see where you want to be going in this stuff. So, and we'll go down here. And airplane off, and that's just come off like you're on a takeoff on an airplane, and that'll give you nice, sharp points. Then over here, we're going to use the same technique, and I airplane off, and I sit on it and press, and I airplane off, and then I do these. Now you might want to do yours a little bit slower, so you can think about it a little more. And I'm so light on the canvas that occasionally you notice I'm not hitting, so I have to do it again. But it's better than being too heavy. And here. There. On a lot of pine trees, the needles grow in twos, so I usually show them in twos. And then to finish it out and put him really splatty on the ground, we want to put all this grass coming up around him, around his chin. There we go. There. And you can put in as much grass as you want or don't want. You can put in some flowers. For me, I'm just going to finish my grass on this, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye. Painting white Persian cat fur is quite a challenge. I call this one Ribbon and Blues. Hi, I'm glad you're here today because we're doing one of your favorite things, I know, and one of mine, White Persian Kitty. A whole new one for this series, and I think this one's just really cute and lovable. If you've never felt a white Persian cat, I hope you go and find one just to feel the fur so all your senses can work with this cat. I've told you before, I had a white Persian cat, and it was just a wonderful experience. And because this fur is so really, really special, we're going to do a little bit different method than we usually do with our animals. We're not going to use the bare canvas today. We're going to use a little bit of white paint. I already have my gel on my canvas, my gray paint. You could do this one with a little bit of blue in the background too. That might be pretty. And then I've removed what I don't want out here with turpentine, cotton balls, nice thick paper towels, whatever it takes for you to get off this halo like you want it. You just fiddle with it. And then I've put my design up here fairly roughly, and I've taken it out so you can see it real, real clearly. And then I want you to take, once your line drawing's up, take your dry Q-tip and just go very, very quickly and very roughly, getting lightened up a little bit in the direction the fur goes and the major things that you want to hold in your design. And now we're going to pink our ears. Okay, as usual, I'm going to take a dry Q-tip and just dip it in some pink. And I have not removed all the gray paint in here because I want some little shadow ring back in here. And I'm going to put some pink in his little ear. And oh, these are delicate, delicate little animals. And I'm going to use a dry Q-tip and get this right about where I want it. And in fact, when I knew I was going to be doing this little Persian kitty today, I brought some really delicate flowers in, lots of baby's breath. That always goes with the babies to me. And it helps me to have things around me like that to kind of make me feel in the mood. You might want to try that. Now, usually we would take this out and it would be even lighter. But I think today we're going to make it even darker. Uh-oh, switch, what's she saying? Because we're going to put a lot of white ear flume in here. And what we want to do is leave it dark enough so that it will blend with the white in the paint and it'll look just right for us. Okay, we're going to start. I'm going to take a rather large brush And I have all this white paint mixed up here I'm going to get ready to use. And I've mixed it with an oil medium, a painting medium, that just has a lot of oil. It could be straight linseed oil, but anything that makes this paint a little slick for you. Or some of the liquid whites that are on the market too will work for this. But get it thinned out so it slides, because we're going to get in this with a fan brush in just a minute. And what I want to do is I want to put white in the more stable areas of the cat where he doesn't have real long fur. You know, we think of Persian cat, and he's got awfully long fur. Like mine had 7 inches coming off his back, but it's not on their face. They're almost crew cut right on their face until it starts to go in their little, what I call Sylvester whiskers that are under here. So we're going to, where he's short-furred, we're going to just put some of this in, and we're going to start our process. And here, this is going to be a little hard to get into in a minute, so I might put this out over here, and I'm going to put something under the eyes, like so. And notice how it's just falling off my brush. Just don't work. This is play. Stay lightweight. And that's going to be about all we need right now, because we're going to go get a fan brush. Now, I have 2 fan brushes here. I kind of just, I go between my fan brushes and between this dumb old icky thing that's a watercolor brush I've used forever to get effects. So don't get stuck on a brush. If your brush isn't doing what you want, get another brush. Don't just keep fighting the old brush, okay? I'm going to start out with this little bitty red sable fan brush, and I'm going to dip it in my turpentine. You know, don't use a brush dry. Always get it in the turp to start out. And I'm going to see if it's going to behave today. It might have behaved yesterday, and it won't behave today. So we just have to test it. And I'm going to start by putting some paint on this kitty. Now, this is our rough stage. This is a pretty fine little brush. Okay, and I'm going to flume just the way the fur is growing underneath there. Yeah, you can see why we didn't need to have much going on underneath. Why do all that work? That's like putting up a drawing of an eye and then painting the whole thing in and it goes away. Don't do the work if you're going to be covering up. Always think what you're going to be doing next. Okay, now, right in here I want to be a little careful. I don't want that to spread too much. Doesn't look like too much yet, does it? No, it will. All right, now in the ear, I'm going to go up, along it, and then out. Look at these flumes. And out, and out, and maybe up. And those are getting pretty close to where we might want to leave them. But not quite. My next step is kind of an oddball one. I take a cotton ball, and I kind of pat this down, because I don't want any of this raw canvas showing through underneath. I'll still be able to see my design. Watch this. I'm going to kind of gently rub and pat. Rub and pat. And it kind of smears it slightly. And also the cotton ball is a good utensil tool to get this fur out here. And this is forming our pretty, pretty soft base. Think soft thoughts. When you think of these little things, think of a breeze blowing through their fur. I had a friend came over once and thought that my white Persian cat was sitting on a chair, and she thought he was a fur pillow, and she almost sat on him. He didn't move too fast. He was so big, but boy, he moved that day. Okay, there we go. Now, we're kind of just, it looks almost like it did, but not quite. We've got a real good base going here. At this point, I want to make sure I've got enough grays in this cat, because you know, you've heard me say it a million times, when we're dealing in white, we don't have white unless we have some darks for the shadows and the contrast. And so I'm going to take just a, oops, I've got into some blue, goodness me. I'm going to take some of my white here, and I'm going to put it up here next to my black, and I'm just going to get varying shades of gray that I might want. You know how I say keep your dark color separated on your palette? Well, I did not do it today, and they look pretty similar under this light, but I think we can manage. We just watch it. Okay, I'm going to put some grays in around here to frame his face, and here, there, and I want to make sure that this little shoulder that's up, this kind of little glamour kitty, so she's got a little shoulder up and her head turned to the center. And I know this is a girl kitty. Just has to be. She's kind of prissy. Always decide on the sex and the age of your animal, and name it if you want to. It'll really help you think about it if you name it. And any other little thing that you might want to think about with the animal. The more you know about it, the more it's going to help you. Okay. Now, that looks pretty funny. Maybe some up there. And we take our stiff acrylic brush, and we're going to blend this just slightly. And this makes fur lines too. Don't forget that. Okay, and I'm going to go a little gently here. I want to bring this in, and this in, and this in, this in. This is really slick and really, really movable. There we go. Notice I keep wiping off. I keep this paper towel pad on my lap a whole lot. So either that, or if I'm wearing an apron, I tend to just cover the apron. I find really I'm a little better off wearing just a paint shirt and making sure I hit the paper towel. You ever have an old painting apron that you thought maybe you ought to make, if you cut it up, you could frame it and make an abstract? I've got a few of those around too. Okay. I guess people that aren't artists don't think about things like that, but I think every one of us has thought about that at one point or another. Gee, if I cut this up, maybe I could sell it. Okay. Now, still looking pretty rough. Now, there may be a shortcut way to do this, but for the effect I want, this is the only way I've found of getting it. It's kind of this constant layering. I'll tell you something else it does. It's kind of fun to watch the paint move and see what happens and kind of get into your animal and work with it. On the ears, I think a little bit stiffer white, straight out of the tube, really does a pretty good job. And particularly if you saw this in person, the ridges that this stiff white is leaving catch the light, and they make it look very, very furry. Now, sometimes on the television, this might start to look a little flat, and you would think, well, I'm not seeing any little hairs up there. Believe me, where all the lights are right here, and you're right here with it, it looks very, very glistening and very furry. So you might want to try that little technique for some things, too. And look there, I hit my black. Woo, 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 woo. No, it's blue, Prussian blue. Okay, here's a good example. It's growing already all over the studio. We're going to put blue eyes in this kitty, and you've heard me talk about the growing Prussian blue. Okay, here, right on his muzzle where he's short, I'm going to dab, 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 and over on his little chin I'm going to dab, and right up on his little nose. And that'll look more delicate in a minute. And then under his eyes, I'm going to get some thicker paint in there because I want this stuff to hold. There we go. Okay, just play. And don't get way down in your brush. Stay up in it and kind of just, you know, kind of dance around. All right, now we're ready for the final fur. And for that, I'm going to try another fan brush I have. Now, here's an example of one of the old icks that you never know when it may come in handy. One day I could not find a fan brush that I thought was doing what I wanted it to do. So I started cutting the fan brush up, and this is pretty funny shape on here. But I wanted one just that size and just that much curve. And so that's what I did. Okay, and look at this glisten, and I think it gives me some of the prettiest fur of any of my fan brushes, particularly my brand new ones. I like this one better. And look what you can do. Just string it out. There. And up here, and up here, and up here. And soften, soften, soften. And put in your cotton ball if you want to. That can do a nice thing too. And I'm going to keep doing this because all it amounts to is just doing it and doing it and doing it until it looks so fine and you have enough layers, all the layers you want. And I want you to go look at this little baby Persian kitty, and maybe a brother or sister will get in the shot too. You go look at them and see if you can see the wind in their fur, and tell me if you don't think it's the softest, sweetest thing you've ever seen. And I'm just going to keep doing this with my fan brush. See you in a minute. I've just been working on this kitty, and I hope you've enjoyed looking at the little ones that I sent you out to look at. I've just kept doing everything I was doing, just more fan brush, more paint, more work, more just get into the feel of the fur. And I've put on a little pink nose to get started on a kitty nose, and I'm starting our big blue eyes. Now, originally when I did this painting, I did it around Christmas time, and I called it Sugar Plum. And that was kind of a cute title for Sugar Plum Fairy and things like that. So I put a purple bow on it and big green eyes. But most of the year, particularly if you're giving away these paintings or wanting to sell them, you're going to want blue eyes, blue bows. That's what little girls like. That's kind of the romantic image. And so I'm putting in some Prussian blue that's been cut with a little black and a little white until I get just the color I want. And go a little lighter than what you think you might want. That's going to really help you. And I've just done my kitty eyes, and I don't like my shape I just did. Goodness me. Here. There we go. You really have to look at these things. Okay, I like that shape better, I think. Anyway, I've just used this paint and put it in the shape of the eye. And a dry Q-tip, we're going to make orbs. And when I do it all in blue, this design, I call it Ribbon and Blues. And I think that's kind of a fun little design, too. Because they have big ribbon out here that's blue. Big blue eyes. Okay, there. And you know a funny little trick I've discovered that people seem to like, too? Is on some of these little tiny baby kitties, I put little pink up in here in the cheeks, and it seems to make them look even more babyish. So you might want to try that on your kitty, and it can change the expression. That's kind of a funny thing, too. You might want to do it after your eyes are in, so you can kind of fiddle with it and look at how it changes things. I'm going to take some black. I use ivory black, not Mars black. Mars is cold. I like ivory black. And get my nice paint here. And if I get in this a little bit, I can fan brush it out in just a minute. And I'm going to lay in these little pupils. There we go. I'm going to make it look at me. I'm not going to do them totally yet. See, I kind of work a little thing like that to place it. And then as I look at this kitty, I decide how big I want these pupils to be. It's our technique that lets us grow things. And also it lets me work at getting them balanced, because the cat does not have a round pupil, you know. So I kind of just fiddle with it till it's just like I want it, or almost. I tell you, I could fiddle in eyes forever, and usually do. So now we're going to do some glowing in there, so that's going to change that too, so we don't want to get too carried away right now. And then I'm going to come over here. I've got a dragger on my brush. There. And maybe over here, down little tear ducts. Remember, point your tear ducts down toward the little, makes a little V for the kitty's nose. That'll help you get kitty eyes set in, kind of more like you might like them. I'm going to go over here. And I kind of junk around a little bit of dark in here, and I'm going to scrumble that in just a minute. And then sometimes I put a little bit of a darker ring around the outside, like so. Now these just take a little bit. That's all there is to it, to get them just like you want them. There. Okay, I'm going to scrumble just a little bit. Where'd my little scrumble brush go? There it is. And just a lightweight blend up in there. And a little bit of, that's a little bit too scrumbly. Here's the one I want right here. Okay, here. Scrumble, scrumble. Scrumble. Now it's a little darker eye up in there. And some of these places look a little messy, but I'm going to do something else there in just a minute, so why worry? Alrighty, now sometimes around the edges, up above the eye, you want to take a little bit of gray and kind of plug it in, and be kind of careful because your Prussian blue is going to grow. Kind of feather it out up in here. I don't know why. I always seem to talk more quietly around these little tiny things. Kind of like maybe they're going to go to sleep. I don't know. Okay, now. Okay, this is the time we say, Kitty, you look at me and I will look at you. And you kind of get into its little personality. And you think, I think I'm going to stretch you down here just a little bit. I'm going to quiet this up just a little bit. I'm going to stretch this. This is your playtime. This is your little groom time. Right about now. And you cannot take too much time when you do eyes. That's what people are looking for. You know, on these animals, and a lot of animals that I do, but particularly these little white cats exaggerate the things people want to see, like make the eyes bigger, the fur longer, things like that, unless you're really going for realistic, and then that's kind of a different ballgame. But if you just didn't really enjoy doing these little cute things like I do. I used to draw things very realistically, and I found so many people just really like the love that comes out in the little cuter version, and it really seems to fill a want. So I tend to, this is a real side of me. I really like cute. There's other things I like in art too, but I'm going to take a turp brush and I'm going to start the glow so this kitty will look at us. Okay, let's go. I'm going to put a glow in here. Look at these shine. Ooh, great big blue eyes. And there, I'm going to put one in here and one in here. I'm going to glow the little nose just a little bit, little tiny kitty nose. I'm going to soften out with my turp brush. I can put this brush right on the line between the black and the white, and I won't really disturb either one if I'm doing it right. It will just soften it slightly. So I can get right up on things and get just the tiniest blur, and that really, really helps. Keeps you a little softer, little softer. We really don't want to go hard with such a loving baby. Okay, there. There, and we're starting to soften it. Okay, now, in here, I've got a little bit of a ring. I don't know if you can see it or not, where my turpentine was. I'm going to soften that too. And then I'm going to take my white brush, my little bitty round one. You see, this is just about playing with it, making it yours. There. You really can get involved with these little things. Look, I put a few little hairs up here, up there. Oh, she's really starting to look like you want to pick her up. There, and maybe a little better white under the eyes. See, we're just grooming, groom, groom, groom. Okay, I think it's about time. Let's do a little white on the nose. Let's make her look at us. I've got to know her a little better. I've got to bring her out. This is how you'll feel too. And I think today I'm going to put the highlights up in here, like so. And like so, like so, and like so, and maybe a little bit over here. And I might soften that one just slightly, and I might bring this down. And everything you do at this point is going to keep changing your expression. So you just can't just do something and then leave it. You have to really keep looking at it. There, see, I can go over in the black if I want to a little bit. Make her look a little more watery. Just called play with it. Okay, and maybe I will want to add a little bit of dark right up in here. There we go. Yeah, I like that. I don't know if you can really see that from where you are, but I like just this little bit of lift we're getting in right up in the top by making her just a little bit darker. And watch what's on that brush. Okay, and here we come down here. Oh boy, she's looking at us. Well, she's not looking right at us, but she's alive all of a sudden. That's the most fun part about doing animals rather than trees and things. I mean, I like trees and flowers, but these just come alive all of a sudden. It's just like they poke their little head out and say, hi. It's a wonderful, wonderful feeling. Okay, let's get her a little nose so she can smell. And you can see how long you have to diddle with it sometimes just to make it go for you. I'm going to put her little nostril in black, and I usually do the center of the little mouth in black. But I don't want it all black, so I'm going to put a little bit of gray. The black would be too harsh up in here. There we go. And I'm going to put her little tiny spots on her. There. And remember, you get your whiskers with an X-Acto knife, and don't forget our eyebrow hairs. And whiskers are a real fun part of a kitty, so you can make those longer. And most of these I'm going to have to wait till my bow is on because they're going to be under my bow. I think we better get started on a bow. I'm just going to show you a real quick bow, because a bow is something else that you're going to want to play with, have a lot of fun with, and decide whether it's satin or velvet or taffeta. They're all different kinds of ways to make all these different bows. And you'll get kind of used to getting effects and say, wow, that one looks like velvet. How did I do that? And that one looks like taffeta. And down. going to have a different brush to sharpen that up. I'll do that in a little bit. Just doesn't want to go. That happens sometimes. And we'll put some up in here and maybe along in here. And when I get up close to the little animal, I gray it out just a little bit so it doesn't look so harsh going under the chin. And at the last minute, be sure you put your fur back over your bows, because right now we're painting in it. Okay. And then to get your highlights, you can add some darks, like some dark Prussian blues up in here, and then your white highlight's going to show up a lot better. Maybe you want some of these variations in your colors. Get some really pretty things going on in here, maybe over in there. And maybe you want your tips down in, very, very dark. Like so. And then just try floating some white on top for shiny stuff. And you may have to fiddle with this a little bit too, but like right in the middle, I may put a little shiny white in here and then stretch it out and get this nice and sharp just like I wanted. And it didn't quite float, did it? Okay, a little more. Let it tack up a little bit, and when you go back just a tiny bit later, it'll be a little stiffer. And this guy I'm really going to have to work with because he just didn't do exactly like I wanted him to. But I hope that you all get the idea that you don't do something perfectly the first time. This art thing we're all into, it's playing with it, it's having a good time with it, and if you just stick with it long enough, you're going to be able to get exactly what you want. You know, this is the last show of this series, and I really hope that you've had as much fun as I have, and I hope you join me again sometime. See ya. Bye-bye. One of the most beautiful animals in all of nature is a baby fawn. I call this friends for life. I'm glad you're here for today's program because this is one of my favorites, and I think it's one of yours. Little baby fawn, little baby bunny, nature at its very sweetest. You can't make these too cute. You know, they're always cuter, the real thing. So here we go with our little baby fawn. As usual, we have our gel spread on our background, our gray paint. I've removed mine in a halo, you know, with just the soft paper towels and cotton balls. You may want to just leave yours plain, whatever it takes to get started in this really fun method of doing fur, where we do it all at once. And we use the white canvas rather than white paint. It's really different if you haven't seen it before. What I've done is, you might have a line drawing up here, but I've taken mine out a little more strong. Look here, with this brush I call a terp brush. It's a large, bright brush, sable, and it will just lift things out. And I've taken out the background where I want him white, like around his eye and little bunny's muzzle. And sometimes it's just to mark things for placement, like the eye or the nose or something like that. You can kind of do it any way you want. It works no matter how you get it up here. So get something up here and let's go to work. I've already put some pink and things in the ear because these are little babies, but that's just, you just kind of paint a little stuff in. Mainly where we want to start with a major lift out is you take your whole wad of Q-tips and you dip them in your turpentine and blot them out. And any place you want to make some white fur, like on the breast of this deer, kind of make some shapes using the Q-tip on its side, not up on its point, on its side. And then you just take your stiff bristle brush. This is made for acrylics. You dip it in the turpentine. Today, when we're in the white, you don't dip in the gel, and it will make streaks. I don't know if on the television you can see all these streaks, but you get just down. We use this same thing for bird's breast. And look over here, I can just scoot it across, and I get some shades of gray that I never had mixed. Or I can pull some back in. Look there, see? It looks fluffy and fuzzy. And just that quick, we've got a beautiful downy breast on our little fawn. The most unusual thing about this in some ways is this really funny looking paint pattern that we start out with. And if you've never seen it, you're going to go, oh my goodness, what in the world is that? We start using a bright brush always to paint with, never a round, because that bright gives us a lot of mobility. Making kind of like a melted Hershey bar, our raw umber paint. Whipped cream, melted Hershey bar, however you want to think of it. And we start in all the easy places. Any place we know there's a shadow, we know that things are going to be dark. Like behind that hip, like to delineate this leg, like to delineate the little bunny's jaw, look there. And here I'm being real careful because I want to make sure, not that I'm painting a perfect brown shape, but that I'm leaving a beautiful little muzzle on the bunny. So that's what's going on there. Sometimes I'm painting brown, and sometimes, like here, I'm delineating the top of the front leg, see? So you have to keep track of when you're working on something just to make a brown shape, and where, like right along there, I'm delineating the front of the leg. Looks a little confusing at first. Okay, another easy place would be, there's a shadow on him right in there that I'm going to want, and maybe a little color along the back, and I might want him to look a little browner back here. And look at how this brush is unloading now. I can fill it up again in a minute, but while it's unloading, I'm going to put scrumbly, which is my word for a scruffy jumble. I'm going to put some more just color in. Now I'm going to grab some paint, and I'm going to look for dark, dark places again. Let me see. I think usually right under here, this beautiful line that's in so many animals between the ear and the eye, probably to make the base of the ear look recessed or make it recede there. Up here, let's see, now it's unloading again. I don't want anything too heavy out along the edges of these ears. Look at that, that'll brush out real softly. It looks real funny now. Maybe along the top of the head. This is kind of up to you where you want the shadows to be. Could be you'd be working from a photograph. You wouldn't be doing this project at all. And all you do is look for the dark places and put your raw umber in. It really is so simple. Okay, maybe something along the base of the legs, and notice I'm letting a lot of the white or gray dots show here. And there's this little hoof going to come in there, and maybe I'm going to want this to stretch a little bit. Now, we're in a fawn, so we don't want too much of this umber color. If you get too much, we can add some shadow later if we need to, but you get too much and he turns out to be the wrong color. I'm going to save the bunny for a little bit because he's just kind of more of the same, and we might get in him anyway. So let's check over. Always see, okay, here's a place I missed. Just come down the ear, just kind of lightly like that. That'll work on him. Maybe a little bit in the ear. Kind of go over and see if you've missed any places like I have under the chin. You always got to check. Sometimes something will just escape you. We could add it later, but we're kind of trying to show you all of this at once. There we go, okay. Maybe a little more there, a little more there. This is just color now, just to make him look a little brown. And speaking of places that escape you, I missed his little white undertail right there, lifting it out. We'll do it now, no problem. The next really funny part is this color that I use that I call fawn color. It is basically cad light, raw umber, and some burnt sienna in it, and it has a very strange greenish appearance. Believe me, when it blends with the gray and it blends with the raw umber, it's going to work for you. You can experiment with this, different proportions. If you have a redder looking animal, put in more of the sienna. If you're a little afraid of too much, use it like this, and then just later you can add some burnt sienna into the fur with some of your gel. This gel I talk about is wonderful stuff. It's a transparentizer. It was never meant to be used as I use it, but it really helps us move this funny looking pattern that we now have up here. Now you notice I use big, loose shapes, jiggly shapes. That's correct. And I call it scrumble because I want you to think, I don't want any dot, 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 because that won't work nearly as well. This is going to create a tremendous range of shading for us. We're going to take one of these stiff acrylic brushes. It's a bristle brush, meant for acrylics. We're using it in the wrong place, but it works. Just accidental discoveries, you'll find them too. You dip it in your turpentine to get it moist, kind of wipe it out, moisten it in gel. Now, as you go, you'll notice how much gel you may need or how little gel. And we're going to start with the easy places, just like our paint pattern. Where do you know you want to go? Well, we've got to go along top of his head. Let's don't even worry about it. Now, right about now, or right before now, you should have been thinking about how long is the fur of my animal? How fuzzy is my animal? All these thoughts about this type of fur. We know this is a rather small image, and a little fawn doesn't have very long fur. So we don't want to get carried away. And I'm just brushing in the direction the fur goes. You know, the fur goes from the tip of the nose, over the top of the head, out to the paws and the tail, tip of the nose, down under the breast, the tummy, out to the tail, out to the extremities. And so if you just keep that in mind, that's kind of a simplified version of how it works, but it will really help you if you just think about that to start with. And then you want to make sure that you wrap your fur around your animal. Think of it as a computer grid. Look here, I'm just going to mark this up. There's center and the fur layers, because we're kind of looking up at him. We're going to go like this, this, this around him, see? Think of it like that, and you'll get it right. And any place it doesn't look right, think about it again and make it go. See, no fail painting. Look at me just cover this over. Same thing you could do if you felt you'd made a mistake. Now on the ears, put the brush down and draw in. It's very short fur up there, and we really don't want to put huge woolly ears on our little baby fawn. Okay, now see, this is not moving. That's what I'm talking about. That tells you you need more gel. Clean out, moisten the brush, get more gel, and make it move. There, now it's blending and moving. As the chemicals of the gel and the turpentine, actually it's odorless thinner I'm using, get in there. You can use turp if you want to. It's a little smelly for home use. Okay, look, his little head is already brushed. Let's go another easy place. Let's go over his back. I'm going to shove this out. Look at me. Go in here. And I'm keeping the angle rather low because this is a rather sleek animal. Now, if he were just a scared kitty, all his fur would be straight out, just straight up from his skin or his back or the muscle. We're laying this down a little bit. And notice I went through this raw umber right here and I immediately wiped out my brush. I don't want to travel that color all over. I want it to stay in my shadow. And sometimes I pick up more turpentine and thinner, and sometimes I pick up more gel. I'm looking a little dry, and if I get over to the side, you can see a glisten if you have enough turpentine in the brush. This is not glistening. That means probably I should have wet down that brush and I didn't. This is not a process there. Look at the, oh, you can see the glisten from here, believe me. This is not a process where you just do the process. You constantly need to be watching what's happening at the end of this brush and making a judgment. Now here, I wanted some of that to travel, so I took it on across. There I don't, so I wiped it out. See how it goes? And it's kind of like magic. This little thing's growing fur. Now he doesn't look very groomed, I admit that. But this is our first brush, or our rough brush as I call it. And all that means is basically we're blending the color. We can groom him up a little better later. And let's get on down here. And you might go very, very slowly. That's okay. It works just the same. You could go, be very meticulous. Me, I've done this a long time, and for you all sitting there, you say, well, she's done that. Show me something else. So let's get on with it. Really is fun, just fun. It's kind of like you're growing their fur for them, or like the little ceramic pets where you put the grass seed on them and it grows. As an artist, you get these very powerful feelings of, oh my goodness, look what I made. It's a lot of fun. And there you see I picked up more gel to kind of make that blend. We're going to be doing a lot of what I call glowing in there. We don't need to work it too hard. Here, I'm just going to kind of blend that right in. See how it works? And down the front of his leg. Now this fur is looking a little long in here, but we can groom him back up just a minute. You can always go in over the top if you're very light. You don't want to dig in this too much. You notice you're not hearing a lot of brush work going on. And here, I'm just kind of going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And you can see every single hair. Now look how much easier this is than one hair at a time. Now look at this brush. What have we got? 150 hairs in here, bristles that are making this for us all at once. We're making them. Don't get down on the side like that. That's not going to do anything. Stay up on your bristles, okay? And that's brush perpendicular to the canvas, and that's what's going to help you. Let's come along here. Just go along. And we can groom him to make sure everything's in its correct direction in just a little bit. You kind of want to be almost there, but you don't have to be too careful. Look, he's going to look real rough along there. Well, I'm going to take a turpentine glow there, so I'm not going to worry about it. On the hip, sometimes it doesn't look like it's going the right direction as hair comes up over muscles and pops off. The perspective does this, but basically you want to rotate like going around a clock. 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You don't want to go from 12 to 5 all of a sudden. You want to make sure you have every hair in place. Nature's animals are pretty groomed as a rule. It's quite miraculous the way the fur grows. And right here in the center, you're just seeing the tips of the fur. You're not seeing it like this or like this. You're seeing this. So all you're going to see is little dots and just go splat, 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 splat. And that works for you too. In fact, for some of you just starting, when in doubt, just go splat, splat, splat. It'll have a furry look until you figure out which direction you really want to be going. The marvelous thing about this is you cannot make a mistake. It is really, really foolproof, because if you sit here long enough with it, you will see places you want to improve that don't look right to you. You may not have drawn it or done it right the first time, but all of a sudden you'll say, my goodness, it's like looking at your animal and you want to brush it, or a child's head, and you want to comb their hair, and you just do it like you would be combing it. And look here, I've got a funny place. It's sticking way up back there. It's not blending in. So I go, okay, I can groom you. I can comb you. You can kind of just feel it on your own body or feel it on the pet. Just groom, groom, groom. Really interesting. Okay, here are your Q-tips. We're going to glow. This is what makes it look round. It's what makes it look like you could just hold it in your hand. It's really the most fun part. We take the whole wad of Q-tips, we dip them. We're going to make a glowed area bigger than what we want in the long run. And notice all that mush of color I'm leaving around there. That's what's going to leave me with enough stuff, this turpentine paint pigment, to make all the various shades of this fur, so we don't have to mix it over here in the palette like you do when you're going hair by hair. Go the easy places that you know he's going to glow. His cheek, his forehead, his hip, his little bone right there. You know that's going to glow. And we'll worry about the tiny places in a little bit. See, so you can really hear, probably the light is hitting along the top of the leg. This is what's really going to make him look right, probably the ears. Now, for those of you who are just starting, this turpentine or thinner has to still be glistening and wet when you're working, and you may not be very fast at this. So only do a couple spaces at a time, and it works just fine. I do a whole lot of them to kind of show you every place the light is hitting. Here's an interesting one up in here. We may want to just change his color a little bit, and this is a dry Q-tip, and it gives a different type of glow. But we'll brush them all by getting our acrylic brush clean, moisten it in the gel, and going for it. Look here, from the edge we're going to pull in, and we get all these marvelous shades. And some places you're going to want to do over, and some places you're going to want to leave a very pinpoint highlight right in the middle. And it really doesn't matter. You can keep doing this forever. And if it tends to go away, do it again. Nobody knows you were doing it 24 times if you have to. So it's really a fun process. And look here, and as you're working, you're going to start grooming him a little bit too. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm not going to do anything different. I'm just going to do it in more places, start making him look round. Anyway, while I'm doing this, I want you to go look at some beautiful footage, the little fawn and the mother out in the field. It really is incredible. You go look at the real thing, and then you come back, and we'll keep going. See you in a minute. Isn't that beautiful out there? I love that side of nature. I know there's another side, but I really prefer to portray the innocent, wonderful, idyllic side of nature. To me, it's a balance for the harsher side. And so I don't really have my head in the sand like some people think, but I just prefer what you just saw. It's just incredible. I'm testing my brush because I'm getting ready to put in a eye highlight, and I always recommend you do this, that you go up someplace on your tape or something and see what this brush is going to do, and this one just doesn't want to perform for me quite yet. Let's see, let's unload it. Sometimes you have to do a whole lot of dots. Okay, let's see. That might do it. Okay, let's try it. I've got the little one in the bunny because I have to put my nose on that bunny to get that one in. There, it's looking at us. That's delightful. I might enlarge it in a little while, but I'm afraid to without my nose on it, and if my nose is on it, you can't see it, but I think I might get up there and do just a little bit of that. I've done an awful lot of work on this, as you can see. I haven't done anything different than what we were doing when you went out to look at the deer and the fawn, but I really want to stress to you all that this whole process is about fiddling with it until it looks right. It's not doing anything one way or another way. It's not about Peg's process as such. I have some general ways that things can be done, and I try and give you a lot of options, you know, and you can just kind of do it your way then. So keep in your head this little computer file that says, well, this didn't work or this did or whatever. Here's a little nose, and I'm just going to take a clean turp brush and put a little glow on, and I might even put a little white paint to make it even wetter. Sometimes it lifts out so unstained and so pretty you don't even want your white paint. And that's what I'm talking about. Everything's an option. You can kind of just do this or do that. Down here on the little hoof, we might want to take some of it out, make it look a little bit glowed. My paint's getting a little sticky. It's because it's gotten hot out. You see, sun's come out. Old rainy day turned into a beautiful, beautiful day. Okay. Now, let's do the fun part. Let's put the spots on the fawn. What is a fawn without spots? I'm going to take a I'm not going to take a fairly sizable brush. I'm afraid of that one today. Let's take just a mid-size bright brush. These are these ones that are chiseled and kind of square. And notice the stroke when they come in close for you to see. I'm on the back corner of this brush. I don't use it just flat like this. I use it on its back corner, and that's how you get the lift. And we can spot and spot. In fact, we are going to spot and spot. And when you're doing something like the fawn spots, kind of decide, you know, whether you want them to look in rows, like some fawns are, whether you want them to look kind of overall spotty, and also kind of vary them up a little. That's kind of important. You don't want them to just all be alike. This is so much fun, and you'll get carried away, and pretty soon you'll have just this entirely polka-dotted fawn, because it's really, really fun. Now you can kind of notice the kind of jiggle stroke on this, a little bit of jiggly. My shape isn't real important at this point. My size is. Say I want it bigger, I just go in. If I want it smaller, I take this little bitty chewed up brush. I hate to admit it, I cut the brush. Don't ever do that to one of your good sables. Those of you who've been artists for a while know that. I say that for those of you who are just getting started. Never trim a brush unless you know you trimmed it and it really isn't going to work. But for some reason, this is more like a little pusher-shover that I made for myself. Anyway, you want them to disappear? Did I ever do one disappear? Just make it disappear. Or in places where it's going into the shadows, like up here next to the little muzzle, maybe you don't want them to be so pronounced, and out here, you're going to want your spots to be really, really big and bright. If you have to, in your ears and on your muzzle and in spots, if your canvas has become stained because of the type of canvas you have used, or for whatever reason, you can put a dab of white paint in there. But be sure you take a dry cotton swab and that you soften it out, like if you do that in the muzzle or any other place, because in our technique, it kind of shows up that you put some paint in there, and you want it to stay all nice and look like it was all, you know, that it has some form to the media you're using, and that you really kind of keep it all looking like it goes together. Continuity. Okay. I think there's just about enough spots on this. Next, let's do another fun thing. What would the bunny be without his tail? I always try and show a bunny tail. Bunny tails are just too fantastic. They're just these little cotton ball thingies. And what I do is I take, now on a big bunny, I will have my white area, and I will take my good stiff acrylic brush and I go splat like that, and it just will splat hairs out and look so fuzzy and so real and be shaded. This little old thing is so teeny tiny. You know, we only work on about an 8 by 10 canvas. Although the method works on great big ones, I have done it. Anyway, on this little bitty thing, I'm just using a clean turp brush and giving him a little bit of something. And when I pick up a little dirt out here, I might put a little in. And then I might put a little tap with my turp brush and see if that's going to work. All kinds of choices that you can make. And if you don't like it at all, just take it out. I hope you really see that the whole method is just fiddle, 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 fiddle. Now, to make the little bunny whiskers go, we're going to take an X-Acto blade. And it is so much easier than trying to do all that white paint and all the things that we've all done for years. Just put him in some little X-Acto blade bunny whiskers. And look, they're looking at each other. It really is a gentler side of nature. I hope that you take from my process the things you like, that it really helps you explore your own creativity. And kind of remember, your next painting is going to be your very best one. I'm going to paint some grass. This is called Friends for Life. I'll see you next time.
If you'd like information about joining Northlight Book Club, write for information today. We'll send a special membership offer to you. Send your name and address to Northlight Book Club, 1507 Dana Avenue, Cincinnati, Ohio, 45207. Or if you have a friend who'd love detailed step-by-step art instruction books, send their name and address to Northlight Book Club. We'll send them a special offer to join the only book club exclusively for artists. Write for information today.